In 2000, in the year 2000, Edward Moses's diverse musical upbringing began to suddenly make a lot of sense as the whirlwinds of albums his parents had at home merged with his sudden discovery of hip-hop and slam poetry, all in a single summer. 22 years later, makes us all feel old. 22 years later, he's shared stages with rap luminaries such as Aesop Rock and The Gift of Gab. There's not normally a "the" on the name Gift of Gab, but I put it there. All while trying to float his sneaker habit by disguising himself as a mild-mannered IT specialist. Hailed as one of those your favorite Chicago indie rapper's favorite indie rapper sort of folks, he's also likely to talk your ear off about anything from the woes and Sisyphean doldrums of finding rare house records to tiering systems in Capcom fighting games. Yes, seriously. But seriously, Moses, who cares?
Before this timer starts, and I've done this twice since I've been up here, hey, Rabbit, give me a number between 1 and 10.
7.
Okay. The first person I acknowledge as having saved my teenage life was a queer woman teaching at a Southside high school, specifically a Southside Catholic high school. Those of you from Chicago may know the name Mount Carmel as a football powerhouse, but me, as a mild-mannered nerd, had to be absolutely afraid of the first time my mom burst into the room with a smile on her face, having been a 45-year educator, acknowledging all of her work up until this point to scream at me, "You're in honors classes next year." It wasn't an exactly big deal. I was kind of looking forward to it, but I didn't know any of my teachers. So, after getting past a little bit of racism from meeting my first set of white classmates, and yeah, it happened a whole bunch, suddenly there she was at the front of the classroom, this tiny powerhouse of a woman named Mary Stamler. And Mary Stamler had lived such an interesting life that teaching high school seemed to be, sort of setting the limbo bar on the floor and suddenly having to teach hormonal, angry teenagers at an all-boys school. But there I was, paying attention to everything that she said, including such an interesting life as having had 6 separate husbands before she found out she was queer, and having swam in the Amazon River, taught at the University of Chicago as one of the first women in her program, and here she was teaching AP English to angry hormonal boys at an all-boys Catholic high school in the south side of the city. Having noticed me at the back of the classroom and setting a set of eyes upon me long after the bell had rung, and asking me very pointedly, stretching out a finger and looking at me and saying, "What are you writing?" "The notes are over. The exam is next week, Mr. Moses. What are you writing?" And as she came back there, she noticed that it wasn't a school notebook. It was my first notebook where I kept rap music. I had only started to rap at 14 years old, and this was 16, so all of the discovery was still fresh. She sort of looked over it and said, well, it's not necessarily music I understand, but I suppose I appreciate the fact that it keeps you creative. Years upon years upon years upon years later, I have made it a note most every autumn to go leave flowers at her grave, because she was the first person to yell at me from the front of that classroom, "Every voice becomes important, especially when it is the denigrated, the downtrodden, or the underestimated. Of which of those are you? Make your choice." Thank you.